Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today.
So children, here we are going to talk about the sentence. Now we have all been learning about the meaning of a sentence, what a sentence is, parts of a sentence, etc. in the lower classes also. So let us, before going to the exercise that we are going to do today, we are going to talk about types of sentences. But before we talk about types of sentences, let us once again revise our knowledge about a sentence. So what is a sentence? A sentence is a group of words which makes complete sense. Okay? So you can write any random words together, and if those words together, when you have written them together and you are reading them, you are able to make sense of that set of words, then that is a sentence. That doesn't mean that I will pick up any word and write it in a line and say it is a sentence. That it has to make complete sense. That is the most important thing as far as a sentence goes. 1, it is a group of words. 2, it is a group of words which makes complete sense. Okay? And a sentence has got 2 parts usually, a subject and a predicate. So this is the basic knowledge that we have about sentences. Now, the exercise that we have today talks about types of sentences. Before that, let us look at some examples here of sentences. So see the first one. You said something. What did you say? Tell me what you said. Tell me now. So see, these are all sentences which are groups of words written together, and they are giving you some meaning also. But each of these sentences has got a different characteristic. Each of these sentences is different from the other. Okay? So now let us try to understand that difference. Let us try to understand what the different types of sentences are. But when I say different types of sentences, again there is a lot of confusion in our brain. Because sentences or types of sentences can again be of 2 types. Okay? What is the first type of sentence? Sentences based on structure. And when you talk about sentences based on structure, you have different types. The second type of sentences based on use. Okay? So when I say types of sentences, remember that there should be 2 different compartments in your head. So sentences can be put into 2 broad categories as sentences based on structure and sentences based on use. Now let us come to sentences based on structure. So we have simple sentences, compound sentences and complex sentences. We also have complex compound sentences, which we are not going to do now because it is not mentioned in your textbook. Okay? Based on use, again, we have sentences which are interrogative, imperative, exclamatory, etc. So you see, when I say types of sentences, from now on, you should not have any kind of confusion in your head. So types of sentences could be based on structure, it could be based on use. So the previous image that we saw, let us go back to the previous image here that we saw. Okay, here the types of sentence was based on use, isn't it? So is it clear now? So this kind of sentence, these sentences, these examples were types of sentences based on use. How? See the first one. You said something. Tell me what you said. These are examples of imperative or assertive sentences. What did you say? Is an example of an interrogative sentence. Tell me now is an example of an exclamatory sentence. Okay, now let us go on and talk about the type of sentences that we are going to learn in this particular video today. So those will be types of sentences based on structure. So based on structure, we have 4 types of sentences, out of which 3 we are going to learn today. Simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. So I hope the concept or idea of what a sentence is and what could be the types of sentences is clear to you now. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. Remember children, English grammar is something which is a little tricky. Okay? It is not very difficult, but it is little tricky. If you try and understand it in a simplified manner, like I'm trying to explain it to you now, you will definitely be able to understand and enjoy grammar also. So what will we do in order to understand simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence? We will be using definitions which are in the textbook also. I will be giving you some definitions of my own also. We will try and use some examples from the textbook, and some examples I will give you from my own so that we come to understand the meaning of the types of sentences based on structure perfectly. One more thing, you should keep on practicing these things, okay? If you understood it very well today, and if you do not pick up the book for 6 months and do not look at the types of sentences, then you will surely forget again. Alright, so come on that positive note, let us start to understand what are the types of sentences based on structure. So we'll pick up the first type, but before that we will go to general examples, simple examples of types of sentences. Okay, so you have simple here. Simple, what is the meaning of simple? Simple means something without any complication. So just look at this example here. She plays hockey. Simple, isn't it? So this is an example of a simple sentence. Let us look at the next one, compound. So here you see there is a little bit of a complication. The bell rang and the music began. So in the first one, there was just one person doing one thing. In the second one, there are 2 things happening together. So the bell rang and the music began. So keep this in mind, okay? Keep these examples in mind. So when we know the meaning, when we look at the meaning, you will be able to connect to the example. Then you have complex sentence, where it is again not simple. It is a little complicated. He went to see a doctor because he was sick. Here also there are more than one thing happening. He went to see a doctor, one thing which is happening. Because he was sick is some other thing which is happening. So one thing is for sure, that in a simple sentence, matters are not very complicated. Whereas in a compound and complex, there could be more than one thing happening at a time. So keeping this in mind, let us now look at what are simple sentences. So a simple sentence contains a subject and a verb. It expresses a single complete thought. So I just told you that in a simple sentence, just one thing is happening. One simple thing is happening. More than one things are not happening. So it expresses a single complete thought. And the third important point is, a simple sentence is a single independent clause. So children, we have learnt about what is independent clause, what is dependent clause previously when we learned grammar. So you can search in the videos which I have done previously. You will definitely get a lesson where we have discussed about what is independent clause and what is dependent clause, what is the difference, how will you recognize them, etc. Okay, so as far as a simple sentence goes, this is the simple meaning. When you look at some examples, you will understand better. So come on, let's take a look at examples here now. I come. I come. is an example of a simple sentence. Look at the next example. The boy cried. Example number 3. Canada is a rich country. Example number 4. The girl ran into her bedroom. Example number 5. Some students like to study in the morning. So have you noticed that as the examples went forward, that is in example number 1, we had a simple sentence with 2 words only. In example number 2, we had a simple sentence with 3 words. In the third sentence, we had 5 words and the number of words went on increasing. But even then, these are all examples of simple sentences. So doesn't mean that if there are more words, the sentence is not simple. Okay? Whether the sentence is simple or not depends on the number of thoughts which are there. If there is just one single thought, then it is a simple sentence. Doesn't matter, it may have many words also. So I hope the idea of a simple sentence is clear to you. Let us now move on and look at examples. So whenever you learn grammar, try and read as many examples as possible, because more than understanding the definition, if you understand the examples, it will be easy for you to remember. So a simple sentence is one that has only one subject and one predicate. Now this is the definition which is given in your textbook. It has only one finite verb, that is, it has got only one verb. Okay, let us take the example which is given in the textbook now. So, she went home is one example of simple sentence which I have picked up from your textbook. See, you will find these in the warming up page, warming up activity of your lesson number 4.4 Ramanujan. So exactly it is on page number 91. So she went home is the example of simple sentence which is given in the textbook. Let us try to analyze it now and let us see whether it is up to the mark. That is, does it complete all the conditions of a simple sentence? So here, she is the subject. So it has got only one subject. So she is the only subject. Went home is the predicate. And what is the verb here? Went is the verb. So it fulfills all the necessary conditions to make it a simple sentence. Okay? So she went home is an example of a simple sentence which is given in the textbook. See, it has got one subject and it has got one predicate. And it has got only one verb, which is the verb went. Alright? Let us look at some more examples here of simple sentences. So see the sentence, Joe waited for the train. What is the subject? It is Joe. What is the predicate? It is waited for the train. And which is the verb? It is waited, which is the verb. So do you realize now what the meaning of a simple sentence is? It has got just one complete thought. Let us proceed and look at one more example. The train was late. Which is the subject? The train. One subject? Yes, the train. In the previous sentence also we had one subject. Yes, it was Joe. Which is the predicate? Was late. And which is the verb here? It is was, which is the verb. Remember, the verb is part of the predicate. Alright? So these were examples of a simple sentence for you. So as the name suggests, simple means not complicated at all, not having too many factors. Okay? Let us now move on and let us see the next kind of sentence, which we will term as a complex sentence. So a complex sentence has a main clause and more or one or more than one subordinate or dependent clauses. Okay? Simple sentence was just one main clause fully together. But now in a complex sentence, I told you, the complication is increasing. So it has got a main clause and it has got one or more than one subordinate clauses. Now the subordinate clauses can also have a subject and a predicate. But it is not a sentence because it cannot stand on its own. That is why it is called as the dependent clause or the subordinate clause, because it depends on the main clause for its meaning. So this is the main part. Now to understand what is complex sentence, you have to know what the meaning of main clause is and what the meaning of subordinate or dependent clause is. Okay, so again you can refer back to the video where I have taught you about the meaning of main clause and subordinate clause. So I suggest that before you watch this video or before you continue watching this, you could go back and check on what the meaning of clauses is, independent and dependent. And then you can come back and watch this again, so it will give you more clarity. So once again, let us go to the definition of complex sentence which is given in your textbook. So a complex sentence consists of one main clause and one or more dependent or subordinate clauses. Clear? Now remember, the main clause is also called as the independent clause. Okay, sometimes it is we call it independent, sometimes we call it main, but meaning is the same. It has got two names. Even the dependent and subordinate clause again are two different names, but the thing is the same. Okay, let us look at some examples now. She went home after school was over. Now this is an example which I picked up from your textbook. Like I told you, if you open page number 91, you will be able to see all these examples. So here we have more than two things happening. One thing which is happening is she went home. The other thing which is happening is school was getting over. So there are two thoughts which are happening in this. That is why it is not a simple sentence. Okay? So let us try to locate which is the main or the independent clause and which is the dependent clause. So she went home is the main clause, because see, when I say she went home, it can stand on its own. We saw this example previously when we were talking about simple sentence. So along with a simple sentence, when you add something else, when you add one more clause, then it becomes a complex sentence. See, for example, we added after school was over, and it became a complex sentence. Why? Because we added a subordinate or dependent clause to the main clause. Is it clear to you now? See, they have shown the examples in such a nice or proper manner. When we were talking about simple sentences, the example was she went home. Now when we are talking about complex sentences, we have kept the simple sentence as it is, she went home, and we have added something to it. So when you add a dependent clause to a simple sentence or to a main clause, it becomes a complex sentence. Okay, where you have a main clause and a dependent clause. Let us look at one more example. The boys found the book which had been lost. So what is the main clause? What do you think the main clause will be according to you? Yes, it is the boys found the book. It is the main clause. Which had been lost is the subordinate or the dependent clause. Alright, children. So this is the meaning of a complex sentence along with some examples from your textbook. Now for simple sentences, we do not take many examples, because when we are talking about complex sentences, when we will talk about compound sentences, we will see many examples of simple sentences, because all main clauses are simple sentences only. Let us move on and let us look at some examples now here. So a complex sentence, like I told you, it has an independent clause. What is an independent clause? Independent clause is a simple sentence and at least one dependent clause. So let us look at example number 1. When he handed in his homework, he forgot to hand the teacher the last stage. So now here we will try and underline the dependent clause. So naturally the independent clause will be highlighted. And we already know what an independent clause is. Okay? We are trying to understand what a dependent clause in a complex sentence is. So which is the dependent clause here, children? When he handed in his homework. This is the dependent clause. Why? Because it is not giving you any kind of complete meaning. When he handed in his homework, what happened? Did he fall? Did he forget? Did his teacher hit him? Did his teacher scold him? Nothing, no clarity. That is why it is called as a dependent clause. Then which is the independent clause here in the sentence? He forgot to hand the teacher the last stage. This is the independent clause. Full meaning. Main clause. Simple sentence. Okay? Let us go to the next example here. The human brain never stops working until you stand up to speak in public. Very funny it is, because it says that our brain is working continuously all the time, but some of us have got stage fright. That is, when you stand up to talk in front of many people, you are tongue tied, you do not get any words. So that is what the sentence is trying to tell you. The human brain never stops working until you stand up to speak in public. So this until you stand up to speak in public is the dependent clause. No complete meaning, right? But the human brain never stops working has got complete meaning. Now I will leave you to pause the video here and try to find out the other answers yourself. Then I will of course give you what the answers are, but then you will be able to check whether you have understood. That is self-checking. Okay? So let us read sentence number 3. Even though she suffered from arthritis, she studied hard because she wanted to go to medical school in London. So what do you think? Which part of the sentence is the dependent clause? Yes, it is the first part. Even though she suffered from arthritis is the dependent clause. And naturally the remaining part of the sentence, she studied hard because she wanted to go to medical school in London, is the main clause. Coming to the next example, because Alex and Michael arrived at the bus station before noon, I did not see them at the station. Yes, I'm sure you have found out the answer yourself. Because Alex and Michael arrived at the station before noon is the dependent clause, and the remaining part of the sentence, I did not see them at the station, is the independent clause. And remember, again and again I'm repeating, all independent clauses are examples of simple sentences. Next, before the bell rang, the children packed up and the teacher collected their work. Now remember, when we were discussing complex sentences, even here it is written on top of the page, it has got at least one dependent clause. It can have more than one also. So this is an example where we have more than one dependent clauses. So which are they? Before the bell rang is one dependent clause, and the teacher collected their work is the next dependent clause. So which is the independent clause here? The children packed up. That is the independent clause. Okay, children? So we have done enough examples here now in complex sentences. You have also tried to find out some answers yourself. So I hope we are on the same page and you're understanding what you're learning now. Let us go to the third and last type of sentence, which is compound sentence. So what is a compound sentence? it is very simple. A compound sentence is a sentence with at least two independent clauses. So what are independent clauses? Yes, they are simple sentences. So when there are two independent clauses or two simple sentences in one big sentence, then that is called as a compound sentence. If you look at science, if you remember what your teacher has taught you in science about compound leaves. So a compound leaf is a very big leaf which has got many small leaves inside, isn't it? So in the same way, a compound sentence is a big sentence with small independent sentences inside. Now let us understand that all these independent clauses are joined in a compound sentences. Okay, they are not written as different sentences. They are written as one sentence. So there should be something which joins them together. So the independent clauses in a compound sentence is joined together using a comma with a conjunction. So you use a conjunction with a comma. So how is it used? See here the example. I like tea. He likes coffee. These are the two simple sentences or the two independent clauses. I like tea. He likes coffee. See, we have joined it using a conjunction and with a comma. So this is one way in which you can write a compound sentence. Another way you can write a compound sentence is using a semicolon. I like hot chocolate. It sends me to sleep. The two independent clauses, they join together using a semicolon. You can also write a compound sentence using a colon. I know one thing, she is honest. See, I know one thing is one independent clause. She is honest is one more independent clause. You can use it, join them using a colon also. There is not much of a difference between a colon and a semicolon in this case. Okay. Then last way in which you can join two independent clauses to form a compound sentence is using a dash. I know you're here. Dash. I can smell your perfume. So see, I know you're here. I can smell your perfume. Two independent clauses join together using a dash. So I hope what a compound sentence is clear to you. Let us now take a look at the words or the definition in your textbook. So a compound sentence consists of two or more independent or coordinate clauses. They are joined by coordinators. Now coordinators means what? It could be conjunction, it could be the dash, it could be the colon. All these things which are bringing it together are called as coordinator. For example, and, but, so, or, for, etc. These are all the conjunctions. Let us look at these examples now. He finished his work. This is the independent clause. I see means the independent clause. And is the coordinator. He left for office is another independent clause. He is poor is one independent clause. But is the coordinator. He is honest is the other independent clause. Alright children. So this is the meaning of compound sentence which we have picked up from your textbook. Now they've asked you to pick up one example each of simple, complex and compound sentence from not this lesson 4.2 but from lesson number, not this lesson 4.4 but from lesson number 4.2, that is revolutionary steps in surgery. We have done lesson number 4.2 revolutionary steps in surgery. So you're supposed to pick up one example of simple, complex and compound sentence from that particular lesson. But that will be your assignment. What I will do is, I will pick up one example sentence from this particular lesson for you. Okay. So simple sentence, one example from this lesson is, the writer of these manuscripts was a man of genius. What about complex sentence? Before midnight they knew and knew for certain. What about compound sentence? Ramanujan must be brought to England, Hardy decided. Okay, so we have one example of a simple sentence, complex sentence and a compound sentence. So this was, children, about types of sentences. We talked about the meaning of a sentence and how a group of words can be called a sentence if it has got complete meaning. We also talked about the two broad categories of types of sentences, that is based on use and based on structure. Based on use, you have imperative sentence, assertive, and you have interrogative, exclamatory, etc. And the types of sentences based on structure is simple, complex, compound. So that was about types of sentences.
So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form, children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learned a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.